going on, guys? It is WrestleMania here, back with another video. Thanks guys so much for 500 likes on my 10 Wrestling Giants video. If you missed the video or there's some Giants which you think I missed out on, just click the top right corner or check out my recommended tab for that video. So as promised, here are 10 more Wrestling Giants and where they are now. Number 1. The Great Khali. Like some giants in the WWE, most were certain to cross paths with feuding with The Undertaker, and Khali did just that when he entered in 2006. He shocked wrestling fans in 2007 by winning the WWE Heavyweight Championship in a Battle Royal, but after spending a number of years in the WWE, his status was lowered by adopting a comedic gimmick known as the Punjabi Playboy and failed to capture the Heavyweight Championship once more. Thankfully, now out of the main event, Khali was involved in a number of mid-card feuds with Dolph Ziggler and Kane to name a few, and attempted to capture both the US and Intercontinental Championship before ultimately leaving the WWE in 2014, to some fans' rejoice. Apart from wrestling, Khali has also appeared in a number of movies, including The Longest Yard and Get Smart. Khali though still holds a celebrity status in India and opened a wrestling school there in 2015. Number 2. John Elmo Harris. Most say Harris stood at a legit 7 foot 3 inches, whilst others say he was around 7 foot 5 inches. Whatever he was clearly a giant in the ring, and before appearing in wrestling, he appeared in the film Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He then made his pro wrestling debut in late 1985, working for Jerry Jarrett's CWA promotion in Memphis, Tennessee. He then moved on to work for Fritz Von Erich's WCCW as Little John before appearing in Greg Gagne's AWA as Silo Sam. He also supposedly made a brief appearance in the WWF as Trapper John. There is much belief though that his WWF run never existed, as no footage, photographs or records ever indicate he was there. His height was the obvious attraction in wrestling, as his ability was much more on par with Giant Gonzalez and the Great Khali. Not much is known, and believe me, I have tried my best to find out what had happened to him after wrestling, but all I could find out is that he died April 2005. Number 3. Giant Silva. Much like Giant Gonzalez, Silva started a career playing basketball for the national Brazilian team before turning to pro wrestling. If you were watching the WWF in the Attitude Era, chances were you may have come across the Oddities, a stable of just pure oddballs. One of the oddballs was Giant Silva, where his only WWF highlight was at SummerSlam 1998, where he and his allies Golga and Kurgan defeated Kai and Tai in a handicap match. When he was released from the WWF, he started to wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Hustle, where he even tagged with Dilip Singh, aka the Great Khali. I'm sure those matches were purely 5-star. And even entered the G1 World Climax tournament and finished in 4th place. He would go on to tag with several other wrestlers before making his debut in MMA. With only 2 professional wins to his MMA career, including a win over former sumo wrestler Akibono, Silva went back to professional wrestling and joined the promotion National Wrestling Superstars until it folded in 2012. Silva has now retired from wrestling and is rumored to now be working as a bouncer. Number 4. John Tenta. John Tenta, otherwise known as the Earthquake, had an impressive amateur wrestling career and even won an athletic scholarship to Louisiana State University. He even transitioned to sumo wrestling, where he found the sport quite difficult, taking a huge toll on his body. He found success in the WWF, wrestling as the 400+ pound Earthquake, squashing Hogan and headlining SummerSlam 1990. He then joined his tag partner Typhoon to form the Natural Disasters, winning the tag team championship. He wrestled in WCW as Avalanche before making a return to the WWF as part of the Oddities, hiding his identity as a masked Golga until 1999. He made his last appearance as Earthquake in the Gimmick Battle Royale at WrestleMania 17. Sadly, he retired from wrestling in 2004 after learning he was suffering from bladder cancer, a rare form of cancer where he was only given 20% chance of survival. He remained a frequent poster on the WrestleCrap forums, where he announced his treatment had not been working and tumors had developed in his lung. On the 7th of June 2006, Earthquake unfortunately passed away. The WWE paid tribute to him on both episodes of Raw and SmackDown. Number 5. Fred Artman. Whether you see him as the Jolly Sailor as Tugboat, one half of the Natural Disasters as Typhoon, or Botchamania's mascot as the Shockmaster, he certainly made his impression in the world of wrestling. After his infamous botch, Artman tried to salvage the gimmick as the Super Shockmaster, which certainly didn't last long. Shortly after, he reappeared in the WWF, returning to his former gimmick as Typhoon for only a few matches before wrestling briefly in Japan and then later wrestling in the Future of Wrestling and WXO Wrestling until it folded in 2001. Artman made his final wrestling appearance at WrestleMania 17's Gimmick Battle Royal, where he was eliminated by his former partner Earthquake and thereafter retired. He has now since moved away from wrestling completely and works as a safety manager for Gaffin Industrial Services. He did however return as the Shockmaster on the Edge and Christian show with a chance to relive his infamous debut, but this time do it right. Number 6. Giant Haystacks. If anyone in the UK watched World of Sport in the 1970s, they would immediately be familiar with Giant Haystacks. He was known for his massive size, not only in weight reaching 600 pounds plus, but also his height reaching at 6 foot 11 inches. He made appearances all over the world and even had a short stint in WCW in 1995 as Loch Ness. Part of Kevin Sullivan's Dungeon of Doom, he passed away in 1998 following a battle with lymphoma aged 51. Number 7. Sid Justice. The master that rules the world. Sid was a force to be reckoned with in both WCW and WWF. Teaming up with Dan Spivey to form the Skyscrapers, the team was short-lived after he suffered a broken rib and punctured lung during a match with the Steiner brothers. Sid eventually returned and became a member of the legendary Four Horsemen. He then went on to the WWF, where he skyrocketed to main event status, feuding with Hulk Hogan and headlining WrestleMania 8. After reappearing in WCW and having a short stint in the USWA, he returned to the WWF, but now as Psycho Sid, dominating it and eventually becoming world champion. His third appearance in WCW would lead to a devastating injury in 2001, suffering a brutal leg fracture, snapping both his tibia and fibula, putting Sid out of action for 3 years. He would go on to wrestle in Canadian-based Internet Wrestling Syndicate and later in Memphis Wrestling, starting a feud with the legend Jerry the King Lawler. Sid made his return to the WWE in 2012 on Raw against Heath Slater and later appearing on Raw's 1000th episode. Sid has recently appeared in bodybuilding looking ripped to hell, and there was also a fake news story on TMZ which told of his death at 53 in 2013. Sid thankfully is alive and well, and will hopefully be in the WWE Hall of Fame very soon. Number 8. One Man Gang. The 6 foot 8 inch 480 pound behemoth wrestled for both WCW and WWF. Whilst in the WWF, he oddly transformed into Akeem the African Dream, noting that he was, in kayfabe, part African and going back to his roots. The gimmick was met by much criticism and confusion, as the clearly Caucasian Akeem delivered his promos with an extremely stereotypical jive black accent. Well, the reason for it, in Vince's case, was to create a Dusty Rhodes type character that talked in a similar way. Well, that is until he actually hired Dusty in 1989, making no real use for him. He returned to WCW in 1991 and was featured in the infamously bad Halloween Havoc's Chamber of Horrors match, but was fired by Jim Herd. He returned in 1995, becoming US champion, and then wrestled on the independent circuit from 1998, but in 2000 he suffered a heart attack and has since made an effort to lose weight. His final appearance in the WWE was at the Gimmick Battle Royal as the One Man Gang at WrestleMania 17 in 2001. Even though he now works as a prison guard at Louisiana State Prison, he still wrestles and makes occasional appearances at various wrestling events. As of 2016, he was part of the class action lawsuit against the WWE alleging long-term neurological injuries, where the case is still ongoing. Sadly, he was victim to the 2016 Louisiana floods, where his house was completely flooded and ruined everything inside. He has set up a GoFundMe and has so far raised around $15,000 out of his goal of $20,000. I'll put a link in the description if you want to help him out. Number 9. Kurgan. Many may not know, but Kurgan first tried out for the WWF as the Cajun Giant, wrestling in a dark match in 1991. It was thought though he didn't have a decent enough wrestling ability to be signed on, but he was given another chance and signed with the WWF in 1997 as part of the heel stable, the Truth Commission, and then joining the Oddities. After leaving the WWF in 1999, he wrestled in a number of Canadian-based promotions before giving up on wrestling for good. In 2007, he was given a role in the successful film 300 as the Uber Immortal and continued acting in other big films such as Sherlock Holmes, Pacific Rim and Hercules. As of now, he's involved in upcoming movies such as Edict of Expulsion 1492 and AST, Asexual Thriller. Number 10. Big John Studd. During his career, John Minton wrestled under a number of names including Captain USA, Chuck O'Connor, The the Executioner #2, and the Giant Stud, but he was most famously known to be as Big John Studd. His popularity peaked when he feuded with Andre the Giant and proclaimed he was the true giant of wrestling. The statement though was taken to new heights as Studd was taking growth hormones during the feud. Studd made enormous efforts to keep his substance abuse a secret as he was concerned about being a role model to children. Studd had more or less retired in the early 90s and only made special appearances. One of those appearances was in 1993 when he was going to face Killer Kowalski, but complained he was feeling more tired than usual. Studd felt a lump in his armpit where he was diagnosed with a form of cancer called Hodgkin's disease. It was the general opinion from his physicians that his substance abuse of using growth hormones led to the development of cancer. Doctors had only given him a month to live, but Studd didn't give up and underwent emergency treatment where he only had a 7% chance of success. Luckily, the treatment worked and Studd would live on for another 2 years, but the cancer had returned and spread to his lungs. Though he was unwilling to give up and underwent chemotherapy, Studd unfortunately passed away on the 20th of March 1995. His death was acknowledged by the WWF and they aired a tribute to him on an episode of The Action Zone. He has since been inducted into both the WCW and WWE Hall of Fame in 1995 and 2004 respectively.